Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. So glad to see everyone here today. Is there anyone here for the first time? You're here for the first time? Great. Okay, thank you for coming. And many warm thanks to everyone for your tithes and gifts to our church community, whether by PayPal, cash, check, or credit card. We are grateful for your support. So just have a few brief announcements. On Friday, November 10th at 7 o'clock, we'll be hosting our annual fall coffee house. We have a wonderful lineup of musicians has come together. Linda McClanahan and Joel Nepp, Bill Cohen, Robin Cummings, Ralph Leesburg, Larry Chris, Jack Widener, and more. This is always a joyous evening, so we hope you will plan to join us Friday at 7 o'clock. And also in connection with the coffee house, we could use some help with the refreshment table. If you could bring a platter of cookies or a charcuterie board or some finger food for intermission, we would welcome your donations. There's a sign-up sheet on the back table. It's on the right as you exit. And let us know if you can help with that. Also, as most of you know, we have a weekly yoga class here at the church, led by Yogi Tamara Leeper. It's always healing and relaxing, and it's suitable for participants at all levels. Every Thursday at 1 p.m. in the fellowship area. And if you have any questions, Tamara, where's your hand? There's our yogi.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. And okay, number 3, November 17th, that's a week from Friday, at 7 p.m., that's a Friday, we're going to be showing a movie in the back fellowship area called Gratitude Revealed, a film by Louis Schwartzberg. Gratitude Revealed is about how gratitude is a proven pathway from the disconnection that we feel in our lives from ourselves, our planet, and each other. Okay, and the last announcement, it's hard to believe that Advent is starting in less than a month. Yogi Tamara has kindly offered to facilitate a class to enrich the meaning of the Advent season for us. Booklets from Unity Worldwide will be provided, and there's a sign-up sheet to assess the interest in the class, which will likely take place on 4 consecutive Wednesday afternoons. Many thanks to Tamara for this thoughtful suggestion and volunteering to facilitate. So, and that sign-up sheet is also on the back table on the right. Okay, now we get to introduce our guest speaker for today, and that is Reverend Dana Horton. Reverend Horton received his ministerial degree from the International Centers for Spiritual Living organization in 2019 and has spent several years with the Columbus Center for Spiritual Living. His message for us today is entitled, Is Religion More Than a Building? Reverend Horton, thank you so much for joining us today. We are also grateful to have Ralph Leesburg providing our music. Yeah, and thank you for joining us, Ralph. Looking forward to it. And we also want to thank Michael Contras, our AV person. And as always, we start with prayer, holding the highest in mind and heart for ourselves and each other, our communities, and our world. If you're listening online, please remember that you can send in a prayer request anytime via our website, unityDelawareOhio.org. Just use the prayer request tab at the top. Now Ralph will lead us into prayer with a song.
I am so blessed, I am so blessed, I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed, I am so blessed, I am so grateful, I am so blessed, I am so blessed, I am so blessed, I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed, I am so grateful, I am so blessed, I am so blessed, I am so blessed, I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed, I am so blessed, I am so grateful, I am so
and I just feel so very, very blessed knowing that God is everywhere, that God is both inside this building right here with all of these souls, these spiritual souls. And God is with us even as we exit the building and go into this greater world, this greater universe. I recognize that God is everywhere that we are. I'm so very, very grateful for the opportunity to gather with these perfect souls today. I feel grateful for all the blessings coming our way in the past, in the future, and especially right here, right now. So with that, I bless this service. I bless the singers. I bless everyone here this morning in the sound of our voices, in the presence of this very place. And so it is.
I am so blessed, I am so blessed, I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed, I am so blessed, I am so grateful, I am so blessed. I was like lighthouses is kind of a symbol, a metaphor for spiritual truths. So I wrote a song about it. Here it is. There have been dark times in my life, times I could hardly see, times when it seemed like the whole wide world shut off its light for me, times that I felt so bad, despair had taken its toll, like I was shut up in a windowless room in the dark night of the soul. That's when I saw the beacon of light, saw the beacon of hope, felt the tower of strength, giving me the power to cope, lighting up my path, showing me the proof. It was there all the time, the lighthouse of truth. Now when the sun seems to disappear, storm clouds fill the skies, I know hope is always near. I just have to open my eyes. It stands taller than the trees, and its light is shining true over the raging seas, with a promise for me and you, on and on illuminating where I need to go. Never is it faltering, ever does it glow. When I think about how I got here, I sometimes wonder about the changes in me, from a person who was living in fear to a person who is living free. And if I just keep moving ahead, living life day by day, accepting my daily bread, light my way, that's when I'll see the beacon of light, see the beacon of hope. I'll feel that tower of strength, giving me a reason to hope. Lighting up my path, showing me the proof. It was there all the time, the lighthouse of truth. Yes, it was there all the time, the lighthouse of truth. Thank you. And now, once again, Dana Horton.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You're really good.
Oh, thank you.
I expect you to say that to me after.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll post it.
Well, this ought to be good. I have no idea how this is going to turn out because a couple months ago, back in August, Reverend Joanne called me and said, "Would you like to give a talk this fall sometime?" And I said, "Oh yeah, I'd love to come up here and talk. It's so much fun and the people are so good." And at 2 months ahead of time, 3 months ahead of time, that sounds so easy. And I said, well, I can't do anything until November because Mary and I were doing a trip to the Middle East in late September. And so I can't really do anything until November. That's fine. Boy, do I have a new appreciation for both Reverend Joanne and all ministers everywhere who get up in front of a congregation, and no matter which week it is, it seems like there's always some kind of world events going on. You know, Mary and I, we did our trip, and we saw various holy sites that I'll talk a little bit about here. And then I knew I was going to give this talk, so I was making notes, and I had my little sermon in a box that I was going to give in November. And then we got on the plane to come back out of Tel Aviv on Friday, October 6th at noon, got home at 1 a.m. on Saturday morning, got up later that morning, and the world had changed. And my sermon in a box that sounded so good on October 6th, on October 7th just didn't seem to be quite adequate. And I'm thinking, what do I do? What do I say? And I can't ignore the elephant in the room. And yet, I don't have any black and white answers to what's going on. So I talked to several folks that I really respect, and talked to Reverend Joanne this week, and I came to the conclusion it's not about me. I don't have to bring any kind of a special black and white answer to the elephant in the room, whatever the elephant is. You know, there's always something. We've got, even in the United States, we have mass shooting here a couple weeks ago. We have the war in the Middle East. We still have the war in Ukraine. There's always something, and that's why I have such a respect for Reverend Joanne and the work that she and all ministers do in this world. So it's not about me, as much as I think it is sometimes, but it's not about me today. It's about bringing a set of seeds that we as a community of spiritual souls here, that we can spread in this world. None of us may have any of the black and white answers, and we're not expected to. And yet, if we can come together weekly, daily, as a spiritual community, we can go out, we can plant those seeds. We don't know what the eventual harvest is, and that's not the point. We don't have to get attached to what the harvest is going to be, but we can plant the seeds And that's what we're here this morning doing, and those of you online are doing. It's getting ready, it's planting those seeds. So with that recognition of the elephant in the room, I'm going to still offer a little bit of a condensed version of my sermon in a box, and offer some comments that maybe we can use to plant some seeds as we leave here today. So this is not going to be a travel log, but do you remember back in the day? Do you remember back in the day that every 4 or 5 years there'd be somebody from the congregation or maybe the minister that took a trip to the Holy Land? All right. We got the head shakes. And back, at least in the small town of Zanesville, Ohio, where I grew up, making a trip overseas was a big deal in the 60s and the 70s. And the couple would come back from the visit to the Holy Land, and they needed to share all that inspiration that they got from their trip. So the church, we'd allocate an hour and a half after service some Sunday, and we set up the folding chairs in the fellowship hall. And it was going to be a big deal. If it was going to be a big deal, they might even have a potluck. Potluck with Johnny Marzetti and
Jello.
Green Jello. You bet. Johnny Marzetti and Green Jello. And of course the couple had hundreds of slides that they wanted to share. Hundreds. And they set up the Kodak carousel in the middle. Oh yeah, we got the visual. And 5 slides in, it's, stick me with a sharp instrument. This is... And maybe it was because I was 10. I distinctly remember Mom and Dad on the way home saying, I hope we don't have to sit through another one of those in another 5 years. So this is going to be nothing like that. Nothing like that. But we did make a trip. And we saw a lot of spiritual sites, a lot of holy sites. We went to the Parthenon. We went and saw the pyramids. We saw several mosques in Turkey, and in Jerusalem we saw the West Wall, and from a Christian standpoint we saw the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, where supposedly this was the site where Jesus was crucified and was buried. And I'm sure that the builders, the architects, the church founding fathers of each of these places had in mind building a structure and making it as ornate and big as possible in order to invite God in. In order to invite God in order to establish some kind of an emotional connection between God, after being invited into this building, and the people in attendance. I'm sure the intention was there to make that emotional connection or enhance that emotional connection, to bring some kind of an upward energy from the people to God, wherever God is. But to me, it seemed like that's setting up a dualistic. God's out there and needs to be invited in to this ornate church. And I don't know, it just didn't work for me. We saw there were a lot of people. Maybe it works for some people. Maybe it works for some. We saw a lot of people in front of inside the churches, and there was a lot of scripture reading, there was a lot of singing, there was a lot of praying, a lot of chanting. And these people, it worked for some people. They were getting that emotional connection to God that we, as we study our in the unity and the New Thought movement, emotion's a big thing. And these people were getting an emotional connection to God. But I walked away from these sites, these buildings, and it just didn't do it for me. Maybe it was because when we climbed the mountain to get to the Parthenon, it was 95 degrees, 100% humidity. And maybe when we visited the mosques in Turkey, we were 2 of 60,000 people that were going through. No, that's 60,000 people went through the mosque in Turkey every day. So maybe it was just because that there was a lot of people there. Hard to make for me, it was hard to make an emotional connection when you're just with 60,000 other 50,000 of them were there when we were there, I think. Maybe, and I was surprised at this. I shouldn't have been, but I was. We went to the West Wall, and I thought, well, we wanted to touch the West Wall. There were 20,000 other people trying to touch it. And it surprised me, although it shouldn't have. If you wanted to touch the West Wall, the women went that way, and the men went that way. I shouldn't have been surprised, but I was in 2023 that was still a thing. And even the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. All right, I lied. I'm going to give you a little travel note. So Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Here's how it came about. All right, we're 300 years after the life and death of Jesus Christ. Okay, we're 300 years, and we've got Emperor Constantine, who his mother converts to Christianity. 300 years afterwards, and that was a big deal. Christianity hadn't really spread out, was not a big thing yet. But Mom converted, and Mom decided she was going to go to Jerusalem, where they really didn't have any idea where Jesus was crucified or where he was buried. Nothing. But Mom decided she'd take a tour, and she decided that I think this hill right here is where he was crucified, and over here, 50 yards away, that's definitely, I've got this direct connection to God. I have that emotional connection to God, and this is where he was buried. And so, let's put a church there. So, we were the church. It's 1,500 years old, and it's big, and it covers both the crucifixion site and the burial site. And I'm reading a little bit of Mark Twain's Innocents Abroad while we're visiting Jerusalem. He wrote it 125 years ago. Could have been written the week before we were there. And I can't put it any better than Mark Twain when he said, we're going through the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, and you got to keep reminding yourself that our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ was not crucified and buried inside a Greek Orthodox church. And that's how I felt. I'm inside this ornate church trying to create a special spiritual connection to God that it just seems so artificial. Because God, to me, it's not because of the church. God's always right here. Right here. So I think maybe, I'm talking about this with a good friend this week who is more attuned to Scripture than I am. He said, why don't you go look at John? And so I went to the Gospel of John, and I think I might be in good company. Because even Jesus said, he's having this discussion with a Samaritan woman about religious sites and which one might be more connected, making more of that emotional connection. Even Jesus says, believe me, a time is coming when you will worship the Father neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem. For the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and truth, for they are the kind of worshipers the Father seeks. So, Jesus wasn't big on places, on buildings. So I think I'm kind of in good company here. But it's not that those intentions were bad. The intentions for each of these structures, the intentions by the church founding fathers were good. It's trying to establish that emotional connection to God. That's a very important thing. That's a very important thing. Because emotions are there. Every one of us has emotional reactions to just about everything. And to say, oh no, we need to, we're spiritual, we don't need to have emotional reactions or responses to anything. It's just not practical. Emotions are emotions, and they're there all the time. Anger, which you initially would think is a negative emotion, it can be productive if it causes you to act and do something about what you're angry about that can produce positive outcomes. Frustration can cause you to actually rethink your position on things. And even on the flip side, happiness. Oh, I got this great new job. I'm going to be happy about that. I have a new relationship. It's going to work out perfectly. I got this new driver that's going to allow me to hit 300-yard drives. And 2 weeks into it, this job, it's requiring 60 hours a week and a lot of stress. That driver didn't work as well as I thought it would. But it's not the emotion that's either good or bad. It's what we do with the emotion. And so much of the time, it's that we like to react to emotions, both good and both positive and negative type emotions. Our default position is to react. And that's quick, and a lot of times that's negative. From a spiritual standpoint, I think what we're all trying to achieve here, and those of you online with your coffee in your hand, what we're trying to achieve here is the ability as a spiritual being to pause and respond rather than react to those emotions. We're going to have emotional reactions, responses. We're going to be emotionally affected by world events, social media. And as I might have said the last time I was here, Jane in accounting. There's that Jane in accounting is just going to elicit some kind of emotion from you. And we got Thanksgiving coming up. With all those emotional interactions that are going to be coming up. It's always something. Personal, worldwide, and everything in between. It's what we do with those emotions. How we respond as spiritual beings versus reacting. What we bring to the table, I ran across a term called emotional labor. Emotional labor. And I like that term. It's something you've got to continue to work at. It's whether, when you think of labor, a lot of times you think of, what you do outside or on an assembly line or in an office environment. That's labor. But emotional labor is what we bring to the table. Emotional labor is when we can bring our own humanness, our own higher consciousness as spiritual beings. Emotional labor is what we can bring to those interactions. And it's at emotional labor is best when we bring it when we don't want to, or especially when we just don't feel like it. When we don't feel 100% that day, and yet somebody needs us, or there's some emotional reaction that we're having that maybe we'd like to turn into an emotional response. It's when we don't feel like it. That's when we can actually bring our spiritual being to the table. I had a discussion. I went over to visit a lady this week, and this is her own word. She says, "I'm a recovering alcoholic. I haven't had a drink in years, maybe decades, but I'm always a recovering alcoholic." And we got to talking about, what happened to turn your situation around from where you were years ago to where you are now? And she said, and this was so good. She said, there was a specific night that I had hit rock bottom. And I didn't know what else to do. And I turned to God and I said, I need help. I need help. And she said, I remember that night as vividly now as I did back then. And she said, immediately, help came. And immediately I turned my life around. I haven't had a drink since. I asked for help and God was there. God wasn't in a building on a hill somewhere. God was right here, right now, ready. I asked for help and I got it. That to me, that was just that was such a telling. That was such a great story. Somebody who could directly relate what her spiritual journey meant to her. So we'll kind of wrap this up this morning. I've got takeaways for the turn on 23. Just think how many hours I spent coming up with that alliteration. Takeaways for the turn on 23. So how many things in your life right now are based on emotional reactions? How many things in your life right now are based on emotional reactions? How's that working for you? You use that term a lot with me. How's that working for you? So, what we can take out of here today is, as we make the turn there on 23, is to let go of that need for vindication. Let go of that visceral, emotional reaction. And you're going to get triggered. It could be 30 minutes from now. It's going to happen. You'll get through the day without something emitting some visceral emotion in your very soul. It's how you react versus respond that's going to make or break your spiritual identity as someone who wants to raise the vibration, raise the consciousness that starts right here in this community. And we don't know what seeds we're planting today that are going to create some great harvest out there in the future. We can't control the harvest, but we sure can control what the seeds are that we plant. So next time you experience that visceral emotion, it's time to go inside, see what God has to say, because God's always right here, right now, just waiting to be asked. So it is.
Dana, you're pretty good. Well, I wrote this tune during a service at Unity East when Joanne was up here preaching. And she said something to the effect that, a lot of New Thought people would rather go to a lecture about heaven than actually go to heaven itself. So that's what this tune's all about. See how it relates to what you were talking about. I want to go to heaven. I don't want to read the book. Don't want to see a documentary just to take a look. And I don't want another lecture or some television scam. I want to go to heaven, 'cause heaven's what I am. Now, I've taken lots of classes and I have heard a lot of people talk. You can't just memorize some rules, you got to walk the walk. A workshop may be useful to help you find a way. living every day. And I wanna go to heaven, I don't want to read the book. Don't wanna see a documentary, just to take a look. And I don't want another lecture or some television scam. I wanna go to heaven, because heaven's what I am. Now if you pay attention, I'm sure that you will find heaven's really not a place, it's just a state of mind. A state of inner peacefulness, it's a state of amazing grace. You'll know when you get there, you can see it in your face. And I wanna go to heaven, I don't want to read the book. Don't wanna see a documentary, just